tune into Turntable Taxi on KSJE Saturday nights at 8 o'clock. Each week, we select a musical style and play 78s, 45s, and 33 RPM records. Some of our themes will include swing music, blues, heart-wrenching torch songs, early rock and roll, girl groups, soul, and R&B.
Robots the size of blood cells, Earth-like planets outside the solar system, science fiction.
No, science faction.
Join us, Seth Shostak and
Molly Bentley and
KSJE Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. for Big Picture Science.
Big Picture Science steps back to get the wide-angle view on science and technology.
So think big. Big Picture Science, Saturdays at 8 a.m.
on KSJE, the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners.
Partly sunny skies with a chance of a shower or a thunderstorm on this Thursday. Today's high in Farmington 81, 55 overnight, then mostly sunny skies for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 83 for a high tomorrow, 85 by Saturday, 87 on Sunday. This program is supported by MyLabs, patient-ordered testing. San Juan Regional Medical Center is expanding its services to offer low-cost blood screenings year-round. Now offering walk-in convenience to get the blood tests you want when you want them. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, is available at the hospital's laboratory and the Outpatient Diagnostic Center on 30th Street in Farmington. With nearly 20 tests available, there's an option for everyone. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, a wellness service of San Juan Regional Medical Center. 8:38 on KSJE. It is Thursday morning. You're listening to the Scott Michlin Morning Program, and my guest on the radio is archaeologist Paul Reed, who is with Salmon Ruins and Archaeology Southwest. And through the miracle of technology, we are talking and watching Paul from his home in Taos, New Mexico. At least I think that's where you are this morning, Paul. Good morning.
Right. Good morning, Scott. I am actually a little bit above Taos at our home, so technically not in the Taos city limits.
You are in the greater Taos area.
Exactly.
The metropolitan metroplex of Taos.
That's right, with its 10 million people, well, maybe 30,000.
Right, something like that. But anyway, we're glad the technology is working and that you've been able to join us this morning, because it's always a fascinating conversation. We've just been talking in part one about the long history between human beings and dogs and companion animals and things like that. And in this part of the program, you have reminded me about this ongoing study that Acoma Pueblo is doing about the greater Chaco Canyon area, which of course is very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts here in the Farmington area. And so you've been talking a lot about that with me over the past couple of months. And so what's the update? Acoma Pueblo seems very interested in preserving and with what's being proposed for the greater Chaco area. Is that where we are?
Right. And of course, Chaco Canyon is the ancestral home of many different groups of Pueblo people. And we've been, as part of our initiative over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been meeting with different groups and sort of seeing how interested groups might be in doing, some scale project to basically get Pueblo tribal members out onto the landscapes of Greater Chaco, and not just on the landscapes, but into areas that are of interest archaeologically and areas that may be of interest to the different Pueblo groups because of their own oral history and the connections they have to Chaco. So yeah, we're thrilled to be able to sort of help bring this about, and the Pueblo of Acoma is the group that we started working with. We've been talking with Acoma since late last year about this, and next month in October we're going to spend about a week out in the field with a team from the Pueblo of Acoma. They have an historic preservation office, and then they have an advisory board that helps their historic preservation office make good decisions about cultural matters when they're encountering archaeological sites, a whole range of things. They've actually been very successful in recent years getting objects of cultural patrimony to the Pueblo of Acoma. A couple of prominent cases with masks and other sacred items that were overseas in museums, and they're getting those brought back. We're not involved in that, but this office for Acoma does a whole range of basically cultural matters for them. And so we're thrilled to be able to have an Acoma team go out in the field with us here in about 6 weeks or so.
Interesting. And so with that being said, the connection between Acoma and Chaco Canyon, I mean, I know certainly in Native American history there is certainly similarities and yet differences, and it's sometimes hard to make those solid lines that link these peoples together, but maybe it's more of a dotted line or a hashed line that talks about the relationships or maybe some of the potential lineage between the two.
Well, right. You know, in Acoma's specific set of oral histories and stories, they identify Chaco Canyon and places within Chaco as very important to them as they went through a series of movements across the landscape, migrations. And so, I mean, you know, I don't think there's any real uncertainty at all for Acoma's specific connections to Chaco. Now, you know, we've talked on the show about looking at different archaeological sites at different time periods, whatever period of time between 800 and 1200, 1300, and, you know, I don't think we'll ever be at a point where we can say this specific group or clan from this modern-day Pueblo migrated from here at this point and over to here. So, you know, it's less about trying to build sort of a specific Western-style chronology, if you will, and more about getting people onto the landscapes and connecting to them. You know, and the other side of this, of course, is for them to identify areas in a way that they're comfortable with, you know, respecting the confidentiality that they wish to be in place. But to say to agencies who might be leasing lands for different reasons, oil and gas development, other mining interests, you know, et cetera, that this specific area is of concern to, you know, this tribe, and this information is not in the records for how different agencies are managing that particular parcel of land, then they need to incorporate new information into those records, essentially. So the project is kind of a mix, in my mind, of, you know, getting Pueblo people back into ancestral landscapes and letting them undertake activities that are part of their specific group that, you know, the rest of us don't need to know about, but the more mundane side of just identifying resources that need to be protected. So it's, in that sense, it is a very low land. So that's, you know, a gap in our knowledge, and in some cases a gap in knowledge for the Pueblo groups that we're trying to help them fill.
Interesting. And certainly, Paul Reed, what we have found, and what I think you have found in your work, is that a lot of the Native American communities, the Pueblos, the Navajo Nation, the Zunis, do have an affinity for the people that lived here before, even if there isn't a recognized link or lineage back to those peoples. They still respect Chaco Canyon and other places as a sacred place, as a historic place, and they are certainly very concerned and invested into what happens to those places. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, yes, most definitely. With the initiative we've been involved in to help protect Greater Chaco now for a few years, we've had great participation from the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation president and vice president came to the Pueblo Governors meeting last year, and they all agreed that this was an irreplaceable area, you know, an American treasure that should be protected as well. You know, and as we've talked on the program, Chaco Canyon, Chaco Culture National Historical Park, is protected by the virtue of being a national park and by the land and the subsurface areas being protected from oil and gas. But right outside the boundary is where different oil and gas development has taken place and more could take place. And it's those areas that the group of tribes in New Mexico and Arizona are, you know, pretty much universally concerned about. And the tribes, to their credit, have jumped in and involved themselves in consultation with the Bureau of Land Management, with the Farmington office, you know, the state office here in New Mexico for BLM, as well as the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Since the Indian Affairs in Gallup, that office manages, you know, kind of jointly with Navajo Nation, many lands that are not under BLM jurisdiction. And as we've talked in the show before, Sky, the land, the checkerboard nature of land ownership and management out around Chaco is one of those significant challenges, because even if one particular management agency or another decided on a policy, you might have a section of land right next to that where, this is the case where different policies are pursued. So one of the things that we worked on with some environmental and preservation groups that we're partnered with is getting BLM, BIA in this case, to cooperate on not necessarily a single management plan, but joint management plans that are very, aware of what the other groups are doing, what their agency is doing. So the next step for us is probably and we've had some conversations, to get the state of New Mexico to think about things for state parcels, because as I'm sure you're aware, in New Mexico, about 2 sections in every township and range have been set aside and as state land parcels, state trust lands that are used to generate income for schools and other things. So the state is a very important partner in talking about preservation as well.
Right, and we've talked about that before, I know, on this program, about that the multiple stakeholders who manage some of this land in the checkerboard area around Chaco Canyon, and so that seems to be working pretty well, because this is a new thing, right, that they're all talking together for a change to try to create a management plan for this region. Is that still working pretty well, or what's the latest?
Right. Yeah, at this point we are awaiting documents from both the agencies, from the BLM in New Mexico and Farmington, and the BIA. They're supposed to release new management plans and new environmental impact statements, or EISs as they're known. And that this has been in the works now for nearly 5 years, and it's a complicated process. But I think stakeholders and other interested folks are really ready to see those documents, so we can see what the agencies are proposing. And many groups, not just ours, many groups, tribes, private citizens, have had lots of comments to offer to the agencies as they go through this process. So I think it really has been, to that extent, really the best of a democratic process. Certainly the agencies are going to make decisions, and not everyone who's commented will be happy with those. But people have had the chance to get their comments in, and that's something that is a key part of this process. Now, I know that many of the New Mexico tribes feel like they haven't perhaps had sufficient input, and specifically, back to our Acoma project, one of the project goals is to really get more of Acoma's concerns into the hands of the land managers, again with proper confidentiality, so that information isn't revealed. But so that the agencies can really understand why this particular section of land, or this one, is important to this group, and that they should take that into account when they go into a leasing phase.
Understood. Very interesting. Well, Paul, as what always happens to us, we have run out of time for our conversation this month, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us from the greater Taos area, and we'll look forward to connecting again with you in about a month.
Sounds great, Scott. Enjoyed it as always. Thank you.
All right. Paul Reed, thank you so much. My guests from Archaeology Southwest and Salmon Ruins here on KSJE. We'll check on the economy when we come back in just a moment. The time right now is 8:51.